standard storage and organizational methods for your workplace. Everything that you need to do your job needs to be easy to find. If you use a lot of pencils, a pencil holder is probably a good example of a set in order and organizational tool. You've got the pencil there, you can pull it out when you need it, you put it back exactly where it needs to go. A lot of things can be done then where people will label things, label certain areas for certain equipment. We look at things like, it goes back again to this part of the sort is the frequent and infrequent use and how you straighten things out and set them in order. And I should have an example of setting things in order. Before, in this workplace, they had bags were just all in random packages, and you just kind of grabbed whatever you had, did whatever you wanted with them, and kind of threw them back on the shelf. And after what we did with the straighten or the set in order, you have things properly labeled, you know exactly where they are. You can get the item. The next one of the 5 S's, number 3, becomes pretty simple. Sweep, which has to do with cleanliness. Okay, and the Japanese word for sweep and again, it isn't a direct translation. This doesn't mean sweep. This embraces the idea of cleanliness. A work area needs to be clean. That's almost obvious, and it isn't just if you work in a hospital. Your work order needs to be clean. You need to make sure it's always ready to work, and the best way to imagine the sweep or the shine area of the 5 S's is look at your workplace through your customer's eyes. The customer comes into your workplace, what do they see? They need to see a clean workplace, and that's generally what is used as the standard for the sweep. I didn't show any pictures of that because that's pretty obvious.
Lauren?
Yes?
Would this sweep work well in certain professors' offices?
That could be true. I didn't have, I think that the team leader desk was probably, could be an example.
I'm not saying that, you know, all professors.
Have you been in my office?
So do you do this?
I try. I work very hard within my own space to have it, to practice the 5 S's, because if I don't work very hard and maintain my workplace that way, then I don't think I can show other people how to do it very well. The next S is to standardize. And so in standardizing, what you're doing, oh, I just about forgot. So the standardize, that's a little bit longer word. It's S-E-I-K-E-T-S-U. And so that's to standardize. And to standardize just means you need consistency in your work area. Prevent clutter. If you don't standardize, your first other S's of sort and straighten and sweep can't be maintained if you don't have the standards. And again, this is part of having the team maintain the standards. This is a good example of a standardized. We had, actually it could be a sort as well as a standardized, but we had this cabinet before. Say you needed what was in here. What do you have to do? You have to remove 3 other bins just to find what you need. Well, after, what we did is we put in place an appropriate cabinet that you can look, open a drawer, and you can see all of your amounts. Because in here, they had a problem you didn't know. Were there 10 of those, 10 of the item in here, or 50, or none? Was it even empty? Here, visually, again, going back to the concept of a visual workplace, you open that drawer, and you look in there, you see what you have.
How is this different from sort and straighten?
Sort and straighten are similar. Going back to our first slide here, to sort would be the concept of you going through that cabinet and saying, what do I actually need in there?
I guess I meant your example. I was having a hard time relating your
then the standardized part of it, so we did sort and straighten to come up with this kind of a concept. And then the standardized, we talked about consistency in the work area, preventing clutter, and being able to understand what needs to be in the workplace. And so that's where we standardize, meaning that all of the things that were in those bins, you will know where they always are. They're in a standard location. Everyone understands it. So it's setting the standard of having this type of an organizational system for your parts versus here. And again, these concepts, this is where we go back to, it's a holistic kind of a system, because all of these concepts intertwine with each other. You can't just do one without affecting the others. And what you find is, as you progress through, you come up with some of these other concepts that work well. It's a very good question, though, because I think that comes to the concept of this kind of a holistic approach to the 5S. The very last of the 5 S's is sustain. About sustain is, it's not a direct translation from here. Sustain means more. It talks about discipline. And the discipline there is, we need to keep these processes going. You set everything up, and you need to maintain what you have, or it's all going to fall apart. Later on in the course, when we get into the more specifics of each of these 5 S's and do exercises and talk about how we're going to do these, you will find out things about implementing an auditing system, for example. After you have the system set up, you need to audit it. And we'll talk about, you can get forms, you can do all kinds of stuff. This poster that I brought here is an example from a company that makes many of these tools. Forms, computer programs, a lot of things that can help you set up a system like this and then also sustain it. The one thing that can't be stressed too much here is
The last thing I need is more forms in my division.
That's very true, and I think we need to look and evaluate each of the forms, and the team needs to decide whether they want to use them. Again, this is a team effort, not decided just by the supervisor. It's going to be very critical to get the management support for this, and then also rewards for the success of the program. Overall, the whole vision of the 5S is, it's shown we can reduce costs. You have costs, you have less work in process, less warehouse inventory. You're straightening things out. You actually end up with more space. One of the projects we did, we had a 30% increase in actual available floor space after implementing such a program.
How do you know it's shown that result?
Well, that's actually part of the setting up of a system, is having metrics and benchmarks, and through things like the audit system that you set up with in the sustain phase. You can, well, actually what we did is we did a lot of this before and after kind of thing, and what we did with, for example, this is we looked at things like actual items per unit area, and so you could come up with metrics actually showing that this new way is a more efficient way of storing. So it's very important then to have metrics and measurements in a system like this. So this is the basics of the 5 S's, and what I'd like everybody to do is, for the next session, I would like you to go through the handout that I gave you, read through those, and we can discuss them further. And again, the next sessions of the class, we're going to take each of these S's and go through them in great detail and discuss how you can implement these